And hello again from Fox News in Washington. The showdown over the botched gun trafficking operation known as Fast and Furious escalated dramatically this week, with the president asserting executive privilege over key documents and a House committee voting Attorney General Holder is in contempt of Congress. Joining us now to discuss the confrontation are Darrell Issa, the Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee, and from San Antonio, the panel's top Democrat, Elijah Cummings. Assuming there's no deal with the administration over the documents you're seeking, Congressman Issa, will the House vote Attorney General Holder in contempt this week?
Yes, I believe they will. Both Republicans and Democrats will vote that.
You're saying it's going to be bipartisan?
I believe it'll be bipartisan. You never know how many, but there are a number of Democrats, 31, who wrote to the administration asking them to be forthcoming. Many of them will stay with us now that the administration has not been.
But no doubt in your mind, the House will vote Holder in contempt.
Well, Chris, it's regrettable we're here, and we certainly would like to not be here. And if the President and Attorney General Holder would simply start producing the documents they know they could produce to us that are not by any means going to be covered by executive privilege, this could be delayed or even eliminated. But we have to see the documents first. We can't have a promise that we're going to be satisfied and dismiss this contempt.
And failing that kind of an agreement, then what?
Well, it's the Speaker's decision, but he's announced that we will vote this week if there isn't a negotiated settlement.
Now, give us an example of the kind of document that's all that important, that you say is going to really get to the bottom of this case and that clearly is not a matter of executive privilege.
Well, a good example is shortly after February 4th, after Congress and Senator Grassley specifically got a letter which was untrue, clearly untrue, that said they don't let guns walk, the ATF director, Kenneth Melson, sent an email in which he has said to us in sworn testimony that, in fact, he had concerns, and we want to see that email because that's an example where he was saying, if we believe his sworn testimony, that guns walked, and he said it shortly after February 4th, and on July 4th, when he told us that, we began asking for that document.
This is an email between him and whom?
And his handlers at Justice. You know, the ATF director effectively reports to the Deputy Attorney General. This email would have circulated to them. We'd like to know not just where did he send it, but who talked about it, because that's a point at which, shortly after February 4th, they should have known that that February 4th letter was untrue.
Congressman Cummings, we're going to get to this whole question of Melson because it is important in a little bit, but let me just ask you in this overall question, do you believe that the House is going to vote, failing an agreement, is going to vote Holder in contempt? And this would be the first time in history that either House has ever voted the Attorney General, the chief law enforcement officer of the land, in contempt. What do you think of this kind of action?
First of all, I think it's extremely unfortunate, and I absolutely don't think that we needed to be at this place. You know, over a year ago, Chairman Issa accused Holder of authorizing these tactics, and nothing could be further from the truth from the evidence that we've already gotten. There's no evidence that he knew about it, no evidence that he authorized or condoned it. And you know, I'm really kind of saddened that at this point in the history of the Congress that we would be finding this Attorney General in contempt. And, you know, Chris, I think that, and I'm calling on Speaker Boehner to come forth and show the strong leadership that I know he will, and sit down with the Attorney General to resolve this matter. The Attorney General has made it clear that he is willing to work with this Congress. He's already turned over 7,600 documents, gone through millions of emails. And has even given up what's called internal deliberative documents. These are types of documents that the Attorney Generals over and over, years after year after year, have held close to them, but themselves and their offices. But he has done that. And so I think all he's asked for is a good faith promise that we would bring these contempt proceedings to some kind of conclusion, and he's offering to sit down with House leadership and work it out, and I hope we do that. I really do.
All right, let me get to you, Congressman Issa. Let's assume that, in fact, The House votes this week to hold Holder in contempt. Then what? Because you can refer it to the U.S. attorney who works for Holder and in all likelihood will say he's not going to prosecute his boss. You can file a lawsuit in federal court, which will take years. Then you can impeach him. You can arrest him or try to arrest him and have a standoff between the sergeant-at-arms and his security people. Or do you just let it sit there?
Chris, I'm going to continue my investigation. I left a message with Brian Terry's mother, Josie, last night.
Brian Terry, of course, is the Border Patrol agent who was killed in December of 2010, and 2 of the weapons from Fast and Furious were found at the site of his murder. Go ahead, sir.
I told her that, in fact, we're going to continue regardless of what the vote is this week. We have an obligation to get to the truth about Fast and Furious and about those responsible, specifically related to both his death and the cover-up. But having said that, mine is not automatically to look at post-contempt. Mine is to continue investigating and doing my job, along with Mr. Cummings, of a host of other abuses and failures, GSA and other scandals, because we need to get corrective action. I would take exception with my colleague in that I did not say that Eric Holder always knew. I know that Lanny Brewer knew well before the retraction because Lanny
was the head of the criminal division.
Right, because Lanny Brewer said that to me, that he thought that this was a good idea but badly executed. Having said that, we, in fact, are simply trying to get to the truth when we were told a lie, and that's what this contempt is about. It's about the cover-up.
Okay. We're going to get back to that in a moment. Congressman Cummings, if I may, and you can answer, you can respond to him as well, sure, if you want it in your answer.
I plan to.
Okay, good. Fast and Furious,
yeah,
as Congressman Issa points out, is not just another Washington scandal. Someone was killed here. Brian Terry, a Border Patrol agent, with some of the guns used here. And this week, here is what Terry's parents had to say.
There's something that they don't want us to know, and there's something to hide.
I think they're hiding something. I think they're lying and they're hiding it.
A year ago, Congressman Cummings, you told the Terrys, the parents, this.
We will not rest until every single person responsible for all of this, no matter where they are brought to justice.
Congressman Cummings, can you honestly say that you've kept that promise?
I have kept that promise, and I will keep that promise. You got to understand, a year ago I had a nephew who was slaughtered and shot with a gun. I see it in my district and I see it in my city. I see what guns can do, and I am determined to do that. But you got to understand something, Chris. This contempt proceeding has nothing to do with the murder of Brian Terry. What we're dealing with is, and Chairman Issa has made it clear, we're dealing with now some documents where there's an effort to, number one, figure out how this false document was submitted to Senator Grassley. And keep in mind that there was false information, Chris, that was sent to the legislative department of the Department of Justice from the folks down there in Phoenix, that is the ATF. These are the same people, by the way, many of them, who were carrying on operations like Fast and Furious since 2006. And in other words, they were operating under the Bush administration. They sent these false documents up there, and Mr. Issa knows that. He knows that. Well, and again, and let me finish. And 1,300 pages of documents, internal deliberative documents, have already been presented to us by Mr. Holder. We've gotten those. And all the Attorney General has asked for, and I sat in a meeting, and he simply, with Mr. Issa, and he simply said, look, I'm willing to turn over documents, but just give me some, assurances that you will make a good faith effort for us to bring the contempt piece to an end. Let me,
if I may, sir, because this is a very key point, and I want to ask Congressman Issa about it.
Okay.
Let me also just explain to folks who haven't been following this closely. In February of 2011, a little over a year ago, the Justice Department sent a letter to Senator Grassley saying that there had been no gun walking operation where they had let the guns go over the border. In December of 2011, they had to send another letter to Congress saying that wasn't true, retracting the letter. So that's why February 2011 is such a big date. Congressman Issa, you talk about finding the truth about Brian Terry, but you have refused to hold a public hearing with the people at Phoenix ATF who actually ran the operation. You've refused to hold a public hearing with the former head of ATF, Ken Melson, this person whose email you're so interested in. You've refused to hold a public hearing with him, and he has testified that he never told the higher-ups at Justice Department about Fast and Furious.
No, Chris. He's testified that he did tell them.
No, he says, well, we'll get to that in a second. And you also, in the case of these letters, you're seeking documents after February of last year, which may be politically embarrassing, may show that they were scrambling to come up with an explanation for their false denial. But how does that tell you what happened 2 months earlier to Brian Terry?
What's important is that this period, February 4th to December, first of all, Kenneth Melson told us in July 4th that he had sent, shortly after February 4th, he had sent an email. We want a copy of that. We'd like to have Kenneth Melson, and by the way, a gentleman named Cunningham who's threatened to take the fifth, and a number of other these individuals before us. But before you bring them before us, we need to see the documents that were produced, perhaps as, and Mr. Cummings says it very well, perhaps these people were lying to their bosses, but we're not going to bring them in unless we have the kinds of questions we need to ask. I want every one of those people here. I expected to have a panel. But part of what you do is you get testimony.
But you so far have refused to have Kenneth Melson appear.
Not at all. We have not refused. We want.
Well, has he testified before your committee?
He testified for 2 days before.
In a public hearing?
No, in a private gathering with Republicans and Democrats under oath. Our lawyers were asking him those questions. From that, we asked for documents. Our intention is to have him back on a panel along with Dennis Burke and others.
I hate to interrupt, but we have limited time. Congressman Cummings, does that satisfy you?
No, I have asked the chairman to bring ATF Director Melson before us. He has refused to. We've asked for witnesses to come before a public hearing. He's refused to do that. All I'm saying is the chairman in me has a willing partner. If we are really going to be about the business of keeping our promise to the Terry family, I want to do that. That is so very, very important. But I can tell you that, again, and I think, and I've said it before, Chris, I think with regard to getting these documents, we're on the 1 foot line of a field. And I have absolutely no doubt that if Speaker Boehner showed the strong leadership that I know he will, we can sit down, work this thing out with the Attorney General, and move on.
All right, gentlemen, I hate to interrupt, but we have limited time, and I want to ask each one more question. The President, of course, asserted executive privilege this week, and Congressman Issa, here is what House Democratic Leader Pelosi had to say after that about the Fast and Furious investigation.
They're going after Eric Holder because he is supporting measures to overturn these voter suppression initiatives in the states. This is no accident. It is no coincidence. It is a plan on the part of the Republicans.
But Congressman Cummings, Congress started the investigation of Fast and Furious in January of 2011, just 1 month after Brian Terry was killed, and almost a year before Holder got into these voter suppression cases. Question, what is Nancy Pelosi talking about?
I think that there are a number of people, they look at Attorney General Holder, and they themselves ask, why is he become the punching bag for so many Republicans? Why is he the subject of all these conspiracy theories? But you know what, Chris, the fact is that I'm a lawyer. I'm used to getting to the bottom of things and resolving them and moving forward. And again, no matter what other people may think, I think that we have a duty to the American public, a duty to the Congress of the United States at this critical moment to get the documents. I know we can get them. It's just a matter of sitting down and talking to Holder. We can get those documents and get this matter resolved.
Okay.
You asked a question a moment ago.
I'm sorry. We are almost out of time, and I do want to ask Congressman Issa invoked executive privilege. House Speaker Boehner said that that changes everything. Let's watch.
The decision to invoke executive privilege is an admission the White House officials were involved in decisions that misled the Congress and have covered up the truth.
Question: do you have any evidence that White House officials were involved in these decisions, that they knowingly misled Congress and are involved in a cover-up?
No, we don't. And what we're seeking are documents we know to exist February 4th to December that are, in fact, about Brian Terry's murder, who knew and why people were lying about it, and get to the truth. That's all we want. Eric Holder ends up being the custodian of the documents. We would go to the Deputy Attorney General just as easily if he would give us the documents. That's all we're looking for, is the documents which are internal to the false statement and not part of the deliberative process. You know, in the
But I just want to be clear. We've got to get out. No evidence at this point that the White House is involved in a cover-up.
And I hope that they don't get involved. I hope this stays at justice, and I hope that justice cooperates, because ultimately justice lied to the American people on February 4th, and they didn't make it right for 10 months.
All right. We're going to have to leave it there. Congressman Cummings, Congressman Issa, thank you both so much.